is going to be really, really fun. Hold on a second. We got Jeff Krause with us, ufology, and much, much more. He's a jokester.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Oh, it's getting crazier, and we got Jeff to prove it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Late Late Horror Show. This is Paranormal Into the Night every Thursday, usually, unless something comes up. So, but yeah, everybody welcome. I see everybody in the chat already. Edward Stewart, Artemis, WWM, Connie Clary, Black Rose, Ginger is here. Paul Ham is here. Everybody's streaming on in. We have Tracy, my co-host for this evening too, and we have Jeff Krause, who is a ufologist and former MUFON member director. I'm not sure what part, but hello, Jeff. How are you doing?
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be fun. We had a good 15 minutes of some fun talk. We were talking about, no, I won't even say what we were talking about. Things that are very important in life. But anyways.
A spectrum of subjects.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Hey, Bean, what is going on? Good to see you. Red Ants, Boy Wonder. Everybody's showing up now. So here we go. Let's start this off. Let's get ready to know who Jeff Krause is. And man, I hope you had some good experiences so we can hear them. If anybody ever has a question in the chat, please feel free to ask, and I'll try to catch it. But Jeff, where did it all begin, man? Where did this start?
Okay, well, I was a child of the 60s for one thing, the atomic era. And I had relatives that lived in, Artesia, New Mexico, which is just south of Roswell. So I had heard through them as a kid stories about, the flying saucers being real and things like that. Although my dad went out of his way to try to convince me that wasn't the case. He kind of went so far to convince me that it started making me think that perhaps he was, arguing a little bit too much about it. But I saw things growing up that were interesting, shall we say. I think I might have had a pretty good sighting when I was about 4 on the way to the New York World's Fair, in the middle of New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
But that's kind of, that's a maybe sighting. My first really good jaw drop sighting was in 1979. I lived in a recording studio in Azusa, California at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was a warm summer night, and so we were eating later. And it was probably like 8:30 when I went to the market across the street and got a couple steaks, come back and barbecue. And as we came out of the market, my peripheral vision, I could see something moving kind of up above us, which was kind of weird because like the San Gabriel Mountains, you could see in the distance, they were 10 miles away, maybe in the distance, and had good altitude to them and everything. And there is still enough ambient light in the sky, sunset still, to see the mountains and other things around. So when I looked up and saw this huge rectangular shaped craft floating overhead, I was kind of surprised.
Wait, what shape did you say it was?
It was rectangular. It was probably, judging by knowing, it was down low enough and it was going really slow. And might I add, there was probably 50 or 60 other people in the parking lot of the market that saw it too. And everyone was kind of like whistling and whooping, like, making almost concert noises at it.
Look what we see.
This is it. Everyone's going to have to admit that this stuff exists now because
we see it.
All these people see it. This is going to be all over the news and everything. And it was spectacular watching it float slowly. And then all of a sudden it stretched out like the way old cathode ray TV sets look when you shut them off. They get that white line across the tube. All of a sudden it kind of zipped and moved. It on my eyeballs, I guess the effect looked like that white line there. And then all of a sudden it was a pinpoint dot and seemed many miles away. And then that pinpoint dot just took off up into the sky and gone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
but it was rectangular, huh?
One of the things, it's really odd because nobody there seemed scared. I didn't have a feeling of fear. It was more of odd looking at it, which it looked, more nuts and bolts than anything weird. It kind of, I don't know if you ever saw the original Battlestar Galactica TV show, but it really kind of resembled the old Battlestar Galactica in that it had cut edges, and shapes and what looked like some kind of ductwork underneath, who knows what, but
so it looked like a bunch of space pirates kind of nut and bolted this metal fabricated.
It didn't look brand new.
Okay.
But it didn't look old. I mean, you couldn't tell age or anything from it. I couldn't tell very much of anything on it really because, it was so massive. And for one thing, I was kind of blown away seeing it. Yeah. But I do remember seeing that it had, structures underneath. I can't tell you how thick it was. But I can say width-wise, it was probably about quarter of a mile to a third of a mile maybe in width. And lengthwise, I know where I was standing, I did not see the rear end of it at the time.
Okay.
But the front end of it I could see moving, and the front end was a couple signals down the highway from me, which was probably roughly about half a mile.
Oh my gosh, so it was a large craft.
Yeah, and I could see the mountains. It was down low enough to where, I know it was lower than the height of the mountains because I could see them in the distance as reference still. So, but guessing more on the size of that, I really couldn't tell you. And of course, the next day, I didn't have cable or anything at the time, but, you expect to maybe turn on the Today Show and hear something on local LA news, a blurb or something in the Times or the Tribune or anything, or maybe even the local radio station, KMET or KLOS. Someone else saw it and said something to the DJ, but no, it was just total silence. It was a non-event.
And you were how old at this time? How old were you?
Oh, there I was 19 probably.
Okay, so old enough to know. 19. Yeah.
It was, it wasn't last week. This
no, it wasn't.
Back.
Yeah. Well, the question I had about the object, you said it was large and rectangular, but you said it kind of went to this tiny dot and then it took off.
No.
Okay.
In its movement. Okay. Are you familiar with like how Picasso used to do light painting?
Right.
And leave the trails of the sky. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that white line is probably caused by, the movement of light real quick in a distance.
Right.
And that's the trails of my eye. And then it was far enough away to where all I saw was a light. Because, when it did that, it didn't just go a few feet away. It went probably from Azusa to San Bernardino away, I would say. Or further, which would probably be 30 miles, maybe more. Okay. And then and altitude also was different then. Because if I could see it from where I was at, it had to have gained a lot more altitude to be visible, for that distance. Yeah. And then when it took off, there's no way to measure the speed when it went up.
So there was no shrinking of the object and then taking off. It was just a blur of the light and the speed. So
the reaction, it moved quicker than certainly the human eye could follow.
Yeah.
It instantly accelerated. It wasn't inertia thrust. There was no thrust involved. It was inertialess boom.
Just kind of like
And, you know,
out of
that's,
there.
well, you know, that when you see something like that, it's different than the way normal light travels or anything else. I've seen another disc, and when it moved, it was different. It didn't look like a normal type of light. In relation, it looked more like say a dome light or a tap light in the distance, but yet it was contained, and none of the light from that bled off onto anything else near it. So, you know, perhaps it was a field, or you know, it wasn't an incandescent light. It didn't have the properties that incandescent lights do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the times what people are seeing when they see any types of light, someone drew and said no sonic boom. I bet no sound at all to any of it.
Yeah.
Totally silent, which because
Yeah.
it's a different technology.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that photo I sent you back when we first talked, of that UFO disc in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah.
If you refer to that, or if you have a chance to look at it sometime, and many other UFO photos that I've analyzed as well.
Yeah.
You look at one part of it, if you're fortunate enough to, and it would seem like it's either an inappropriate shadow or something blacked out that part of the ship, and you wonder why. And I think what it is because of the properties of the field negates the photons coming back in that particular direction. So therefore, they don't reach the camera or the observer or whatever else is recording the object at that time. And again, it's because they're using a field in their propulsion and not traveling the common methods that we use. We use inertia to get us from point A to point B. We push through, fighting through, and we have resistance keeping us back at the same time. Whereas instead, they're not using inertia. It's like a field that just goes through, no resistance.
Yeah.
Which, you know, leads me into the subject of why UFOs and USOs are so similar, because, well, same thing.
Well, yeah. Well, I was
You
going to say, I mean,
same atmosphere, no
Yeah.
problem. And really, you know, the resistance is tougher in the water, yet they still can manage to do the same speeds.
yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about USOs too, but it's
same fish.
it's interesting that you've seen. I don't hear too many sightings like that large, like that, and rectangular. I mean, what are your thoughts on how many different types of UFOs or crafts are spotted, and why there are so different? You know, and
I
Christoph,
didn't
I will
hear
get to your
large
question.
I didn't hear of large craft for many years, until the Stevensville, Texas sighting. And then it was, you know, a rather large UFO there, that had like waffle or iron like markings underneath it, they said, which I thought was interesting. And of course, the Phoenix Light sighting came along. And so I kind of vindicated me that, yeah, you know, mine wasn't the only large sighting. There are other out there. But
you
I've
don't think
always
there's any controversy with the Phoenix Lights?
Oh no,
sighting?
I have, you know, Dr. Lynn Kita is a good friend of mine. I've researched that, if not as much more than most other cases, that have come to my knowledge. And I have to say that I totally think what was seen was at least one large craft that night, and possibly more than one. Other people, like Governor Simonton, he made fun of it at an event, because, you know, he was worried for his political career. But he later admitted that, you know, he saw it and he was scared and didn't know how to deal with it. But he admitted that he saw a large craft and went on to describe the same thing that many others had seen. Of course, the Native American population in the area kind of laughed because they've been seeing it for things like that for years.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the things that got me really interested in petroglyphs and some of the rock art that's left behind. Because to me, some of it are some of the earliest UFO reports.
Oh yeah, the Tracy, right? Most of the old, I mean, the evidence in history, they're painted in caves on rocks. Even in Renaissance paintings, you'll see a little UFO back there. I can't.
Absolutely.
About
Yeah.
35 years ago, I went to some caves a few miles behind where I live. I live in San Luis Obispo, California.
Okay.
And in the Los Padres National Forest, there's an area there called Stony Creek. And not far from the campground there, there's some caves that are part of the Chumash culture. And the Chumash were a tribe of Indians that lived in this area for roughly about 120,000 years. They're considered the first people. And inside
what are their names? What are their names?
Chumash, Chumash.
Why is that the first time I've ever heard of them? Huh.
California tribe, I don't know.
Okay.
They're very quiet. They weren't warlike. They weren't on the rampage. They were very knowledgeable and had a very good life for many years until, of course, the Spanish came and caused a lot of grief for everyone.
Took over. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Let's not delve too much into that history. There's a lot of that in the area that archaeology and everything. But fact is, back in this cave, which I could get to 35 years ago, there was some petroglyphs in there, and it had some common designs that I've seen other cave art. The spiral design, which appears in much rock art around the world, not just in the Americas, but all over the world. It had some big-headed people in there with big eyes that looked odd. And then, of course, the usual other, drawings of things, like bows and arrows, someone hunting. And so you got to give credit, they can put a good artistic rendition of what they're seeing on there. I have to say that the other things, although I might think it looks weird, it was what they were seeing. Now, I haven't been able to get back to these caves for a while because the farmers that own the right of way to get to them have blocked off passage through the forest because of all the dummies that used to go out there and shoot up the area and hunt and 4x it with their trucks and everything and tear it up. And they got tired of having to fix their fences and their signs and everything. And so the gates have been locked. Excuse me.
No, it's all right. Really quick, thank you, Poetic Justice and Droon for the super chats. I appreciate it very much. And Chris W., I will get to your question. They're already giving you questions there, Jeff. We haven't even delved into what we really want to get into here.
Oh yeah, we're just on the preamble still. Gosh.
Yeah.
You didn't say this is an 8-hour show, right?
It is an 8-hour show.
I wish it was.
Hi, I'm David Icke, and this is part 100 of... No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm
not a David Icke fan, eh?
I couldn't go near as long as that gentleman could.
Oh,
and
God.
I would be pretentious to even think I could. So kudos to him because he can talk on the subject a lot longer. Even just talking about him, I need a drink.
Yeah. Oh, geez. But hey, I mean, needless to say,
okay.
I mean, you got into this because of the sighting you had, which kind of spurred you on into the direction of ufology and the interest of aliens and other worlds and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and I had a question, just if you don't mind, just going back to your experience.
Okay.
Please do.
Yeah, I'm all ears.
I was curious because you had mentioned that there was nothing on the news and nothing mentioned on the radio or the TV. And there were so many people that were there to witness that experience. Did you chat with those people? Like, were there conversations between
You
you
know,
guys?
oddly enough, no.
Hmm.
1979, the atmosphere of UFOs
Mhm.
was not correct to talk about. Sane people, good people, nice people didn't talk about such things in public. And you sure didn't bring it up amongst too many other people, or they'd think you were just freaking out of your mind.
Even though they were all whistling and going, woohoo, yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
Still no conversation,
I was
huh?
one of them whistling too, but if
It took off and everybody just started walking away, huh?
yep. Well, it's
Oh,
not like
God.
nobody. This is a pretty big town for one thing.
Mhm.
No, and I haven't been in touch with the gal I was dating then in many years. Many years.
Sucks. Okay.
Many
Many. I
years.
get the point, Jeff. Yes, it's been a long time, but
Yeah. Did I stress it? It had been a really long time.
it's been a long time.
But what's interesting is, you'd think over the years, and I have told this, like at both alien cons I spoke at and a few other major events, I've spoke about the incident, hoping that maybe someone, jogged their memory or
That's
someone
right.
else saw it. And of course, like many events, it's a non-starter. And I can even tell you lots of good photos of UFOs. Beautiful. The one I sent you, the slow UFO.
Yeah, sorry, I
You would
don't
think
have the
someone would
pictures,
take
so.
credit of that.
Yeah.
You would think someone would say, "Yeah, that was me. I took that photo. Pretty good, huh?"
Oh my goodness. But nothing.
Unless their identity is locked up in the Project Blue Book case files,
Yeah.
which I did through many Freedom of Information requests I wrote. I did get an answer as to where that file could be in the National Archives. I got the file number. I'm here in the National Archives, or
Farther away. Yeah. Like
hey,
that relationship you had many years
what
ago.
what town did you say you lived in again?
Everything's so far away. So far away.
I'm sure I could find someone back east that would love to spend the day at the National Archives. Doesn't that sound like fun?
Well, heck, we know you got tons of experience in ufology. You're even part of MUFON. Let me ask a question really quick because it's way up there before I lose it. By Chris W. Question for Jeff: do you believe extraterrestrials are mostly physical beings or spirit beings, and do they only speak to us telepathically? Interesting question.
What? That's a very good question. And you're not alone in wondering that. But I'll tell you the same thing I tell all my investigators when I start training them. They don't all come from the same place, and they don't all drive a Yugo.
No.
Okay? And what that basically means is, there's probably at least a bare minimum, 150 to 200 different types of aliens coming to visit, or already here, or that were here before us, or that are us, or okay, so you delve through that much, okay, but then how many different types of ships do they fly in? Well, you get many different shapes, sizes, flavors. You get the picture. So it's not just one specific group. You can't label it. You have such a large variety of unknowns that you don't even know what you don't unknow.
And what's funny, Jeff, is me picturing a different planet in a different solar system of these aliens going to a used spaceship lot and the dealership's going, yeah, which one are you looking at today? The mile-long rectangle, or we got the circular one?
Leaves with a Yugo to make a liar out of me. Yeah.
You know, I mean, because you are right. I mean, there are so many different varieties. Even when
Are you there?
I'm here. I think Dino's frozen.
it comes to a
Oh
no.
no.
He's messing with us.
you guys don't hear me?
Yeah,
You guys don't hear me?
I can hear you now. Oh,
Okay, geez.
it
Oh my
was
God. What
alien
the heck is
interference.
Except all of a sudden
Yeah.
now your hat has a big feather coming out of it.
it does, yeah. Something happened. I
I
flew
would hear you
away.
say you're not a cat.
Okay,
Oh,
we're
okay.
back. So I'm back.
Okay.
So listen.
I made you check your filter for a second, didn't I?
Exactly. Yeah, you did, didn't you? But that's the funny thing. It's like, why are there so many ships, so many different beings, and still no concrete evidence of them on the surface of the earth, you know, doing. Why are they all hiding and not joining in the fun?
Brain burner. Here's the one that really, when I started asking this question,
Yeah.
some people thought that I was out of my mind or I was kidding, but I'm deadly serious here. Why? In all the UFO reports you hear, have you never heard of a toilet?
A toilet?
That's
Tell me one
interesting.
UFO report you've heard where they had a toilet in the UFO.
Have you heard of any toilets in any of these ships, Tracy?
You know,
I have not.
I've gotten thousands of reports across my desk, people. Thousands. Not one mention of a commode in any of them. Why?
Well, how many of them were actually? I guess
Abductees that I've talked to, not one. Travis Walton wandering around the UFO, and don't forget some of the production value stuff in the movie. Okay, talking to Travis, he walked around in the UFO, and he does not recall seeing a restroom in there either. Okay, now why? Okay, well, do you have a restroom
want to take
in
him
your
to the
car?
toilet.
The car you drove to work today, did you have a restroom in it?
That's a valid point.
No, you don't.
Well, there you go. I think
when you go traveling somewhere, how many times is it that you take a Winnebago with a toilet in it? Not very often, unless, you know, once in a while, specific camping or something. Sure, you might have a motorhome with that facility in it, but that's because you're planning, that's your base of operation. But I'll bet you if that is behind it, you're towing a vehicle that doesn't have a toilet.
Well, listen, hey, Jeff, I think you have a good point there, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have a good point there, though. I think that's because there's a quick way that they get from one location to the other that they don't. No, am I wrong?
Sure, there is once, but do you think every little itty bitty UFO that's seen traveled all by its little itty bitty self all the way here?
That's
or
true
do you think
too.
maybe a bunch of them crawled inside a bigger one?
Right.
And it came all the way here. And then the itty bitty ones came down.
Yes. Listen, you confused me with the toilet talk. So yeah, no, that makes sense too.
You just don't travel the universe without a way to pee. I'm sorry.
I just heard of a case where the guy wasn't like in a UFO and it was a circular UFO inside. And he said he got up off the table and there were literally urinals all around the outside of the inside of the UFO there. I'm just joking, Jeff. I'm just joking. Moving on. He's not very happy with that question. Anyways, so you didn't hear of that case.
I had some earwax. We're good.
Listen, no, I never heard of anybody say, have you ever heard of a toilet being in any of these things?
That's because there isn't one. Why? Because they didn't travel a great distance and didn't have the need for one in there.
Right.
First of all, let's establish that fact that they probably have bases. Okay.
True.
Now, what's going to be the best place to have a base?
Underneath the ocean.
Don't say next to In-N-Out.
Tracy, where's the best place to have a base station?
Oh my gosh. somewhere very close, maybe right
If you don't
here
wanna
on
be
Earth
seen.
somewhere.
If
Under
you
the
don't want to
sea.
be seen,
Under the
Under
you
sea.
the
want to have
water.
access to come and go
Yes,
24
under the
hours a day
water.
without anyone knowing your business.
Under the water.
Hmm.
Oh, you won the prize today.
Do I get points?
Tracy, tell me what he won.
What did
A
I win?
brand new hat. No, I'm kidding.
Nothing in it.
geez. Yes, with a feather in it. Okay. So is there any proof of any of these underwater bases? I mean, I know I've seen plenty, but we won't talk about the Google Earth ones. Anyways,
If there is any knowledge,
yeah.
I would presume that it would lie with the United States Navy.
Mhm.
That does not mean
Yeah.
they have knowledge of such a thing.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think it would be very, very easy to make one and it'd be totally undetectable whatsoever. All you need is the same type of airlock you would need for outer space. Underground, lava tubes, under the sea, anything under the seabed, in the earth,
Oh, I think it's easy to hide a
there are
giant.
so many answers
oh,
to where they could be
Yeah.
and where they could hide. They could have cloaking capability to where
Yep.
a large complex could be right under our nose. We didn't know. Or here's the real one that just grab you by the make
Yeah.
you think.
Something's. Yeah.
What if they've been here? This is their planet. They have some kind of civilization going under the sea or anywhere under
Middle
there.
Earth?
And those craft that we're seeing come up are coming from
Below.
undersea to investigate and see what's going on with the surface world. Okay, now, is that any crazier than any other hypothesis or supposition you have heard?
Tracy?
I submit that no, it is not.
Oh,
It is
well, there you
crazy. It is unlikely. But again, unknown is unknown, baby.
Anything is possible, though.
and
There's so much unknown.
I'm thinking on the cheap. If you don't have a lot of resources available, you don't have a way to get a lot of resources unnoticed, underwater and underground are pretty easy answers. And if they have the technology, well, to get here in the first place from where they came from, then something like that, I'm sure, is not a problem. And, putting that much work into it, I would say they're not going to make it to where it's easily found at all. And they would have contingencies in case anyone got close or who knows. I'm sure that anything that we would think of, they've thought out 10 times ahead of time. But here's something interesting and food for thought along that line of theory. I don't know if you're familiar with what they call the Tic Tac event. A little
Tic Tac
UFO that was seen off the coast of California by the Nimitz carrier group.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when everything first came on their radar, they witnessed multiple bogies dropping down from high altitude to the ocean within a second. Impossible speeds from 36,000 feet to sea level, just like that. And it was multiple objects.
Yeah.
And then they're going off the radar. Well, when the pilots got there, of course, there seemed to be some larger object that seemed to be boiling under the water. At first, they thought maybe it might be a crashed plane. This is about the point in the narrative where they stop talking about this large object. And they climb up. You don't hear anyone going on about the large object underwater. Instead, it's the little Tic Tac drone thing, which took off and they chased after and it performed its job. Personally, I think it was a drone and its job was to lead them away from what was going on there.
Like
which
a
it
distraction.
successfully did. Anyway, but again, so my question being, what the hell was that big ass shit underwater with all the little teeny tiny things dropping down into it? Okay. You know, I want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about some little Tic Tac thingy, which was probably a drone that goes fast. You know, it's boring. It didn't have any characteristics I'm interested in. And besides that, it sounds exactly like what they saw in New Mexico in 1964. Those little Tic Tac thingies sound just like what poor Lonnie Zamora saw out there in the desert. White, pill-shaped. You know, his description of it matches them to a T, which again fits my, theory of how long had they been here? Long time. Probably before we started being interested in them.
Oh my goodness. So do you find, do you hear any more stories of that Tic Tac? Like, are they reoccurring, or was that only a couple of times? And
no, there's a lot of sightings of that type of UFO. And again, first of all, shape of a UFO, it depends on your perspective. The way you see any object depends on how it's angled and your field of view. So many objects can appear pill-shaped, oval-shaped, egg-shaped until they come into a clearer view.
Okay.
But the Tic Tac spaceships are like the Yugo. There weren't many made, and anyways, go on.
Unknown is unknown.
Right.
Until we actually can talk to them and say, "Hey, man, dude, what model is this?" And with a joystick, or you got a little guy in there, and we just don't know.
But you believe the Tic Tacs were drones, though, is what you're saying, right?
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's multiple of them, unless, the things dropping down from above and going to water level or below, I think could have been some kind of shuttlecraft conveying either supplies, personnel, whatever. I don't think they were the same type of object as what that Tic Tac UFO was. I think it was a different type of object altogether. And again, I think clearly that it was a decoy drone used to lead away anyone that came snooping around and got interested. And again, it did its job very well.
I would say so.
So do you believe that a lot of these races or ships or whatever, they're already here and they're staying here, or do you think they're coming from other places, distant places, solar systems and stuff, and approaching Earth and looking around and taking back off? I mean,
I'm pretty sure when I got science in elementary school, it was a little different than when your generation got it, and it's probably a little different than generations now.
Yeah.
And definitely my generation is a lot different than, say, in Galileo's generation. You dare not even suggest that the Earth was not the center of the universe. And, there's only the planets in our solar system, and that's it.
Right.
That's it. Now, don't even consider anything else. And there sure as heck could not be life anywhere else.
You're saying that's what it really was like during your time there. Go ahead.
Just getting warmed up here. I knew that to be bullshit when I was 6 years old.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
I knew enough about astronomy to know the nearest star is our sun, and these other stars are, just like the sun.
Right.
And the thought never even crossed my mind once that they would not have planets around them or solar systems. And the concept of galaxies, I've had no trouble wrapping my mind but yet that was not, really known in science, or at least discussed much. Even in the 60s, galaxies were kind of a far off thing. And, there's only one universe, of course. And, we could probably never see the edge of it. And now, of course, we're finding out that perhaps there's many universes. Maybe there's multiverses. Maybe there's universes stacked together like bubbles. And, We're learning so much more thanks to string theory and quantum mechanics. We've advanced our knowledge in light years just in the time since I was a kid and started getting into science.
Yeah.
So you think about these advancements in just that amount of time, and the advancements technologically that we've made in, say, just the last 100 years. I really honestly can only say that I think perhaps ET technology is maybe 400 years ahead of us, maybe.
Wow.
I think fully that we have a grasp of what's going on, and perhaps we have some companies that have figured out some of the secrets. Of course, they're not releasing it, and they're keeping it, how corporate profit is. A lot of the things I think that we learned from any UFO retrievals too, I think were turned over to private corporations to develop, simply for the fact that freedom of information requests can't be written to private corporations. That anything they come up with, that's their material now, and we really have no way to cough up the truth or the providence on them once it becomes their material like that. Whereas if it was held on to by the Air Force or something, there would be the paper trail and the record, and at least legally and technically, we would over time be able to get answers to something like that.
Well, why do you think though that still everything is hidden from us? Why do you think it's so hard to get the concrete evidence? Why is it still like that? I mean, I understand the whole concept.
What do you call evidence? I think there's plenty of evidence. I've seen some great photos.
No.
I've heard witness testimony. Witness testimony is acceptable evidence in any court of law for.
No. I agree with you. I agree with you. Yes, I agree with you 100%. We've got tons of evidence, be it video.
It's who are you trying to convince is the question.
Right, but I mean, how is our government still able to control all of this? And I mean, control all of this with
our government.
Whoever.
What makes you think they have any? What makes you think they have any knowledge or ability to control anything? What makes you think they know anything more, even given the advantage of inside cases, inside reporting, some of the best scientists? I do not think they know one iota more than some of the best private researchers.
No, I agree 100%. I say government because it's just the name you use and the term you use. But it's, let's say, the shadow government, the people who are in control of what's going on behind the scenes.
I wouldn't. I don't go to them for no. I certainly wouldn't think them to have any knowledge of anything that would help me in any of my research. I wouldn't go to them.
Well, no, right.
I had a bad enough time writing freedom of information requests to different acronym agencies and getting back, just the most ridiculous answers to things. You got to go through and catch them in their lie a couple times before they'll actually tell you the truth, and then give you a file number, and then relegate it to someone else, and grudgingly admit down the road that yes, okay, this is here, that. But
but yes, no, I get Jeff. Exactly. So throw that government out there. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Whoever is whoever is in charge. How are they able to still keep a hold on keeping everything somewhat secret? I mean,
compartmentalization for one thing. There's not just classifications of secrecy. There's also compartmentalization. And, people that don't have any need to know are not in the loop whatsoever. And there's been many people in power that just had no need whatsoever to have any of that knowledge. And so they weren't read into it.
So you think every species that they may be in contact with, and I'm saying they as in what we're talking about, shadow government, whoever's in control of it all.
No. I don't think anyone's, I don't know.
You don't think anybody's in control of?
I don't guess that anyone is actually in contact with any species. There are rumors and reports that we've been working together with some alien species.
Right.
I don't necessarily believe any of those. Shall we say that? That's as gingerly away as I can put that.
Really? Then that makes it
well,
even
pretty hard to convince. Okay.
well. That makes it even harder for me to believe, Jeff. That there's. Why would they not interact with us then? Why?
Have you seen us lately?
Well, I know that.
What
Yes,
a group
I
of a-holes
yes.
live on this rock. Okay.
Yes, I have.
Pastimes warfare. We can't even educate each other. We can't even look at people of different color that live on the other side of the world and treat them as equal. We can't even treat other sexes equal. How are we going to treat other species with a tentacle coming out his forehead and a trunk coming out the center of his chest and maybe a couple of squid-like arms over here and some bat wings? How are we going to treat them as an equal?
Do you think?
Ain't gonna happen because we can't even deal with ourselves yet.
Okay,
you know, Tracy. I'm pretty sure that outside the solar system, maybe even outside the Milky Way galaxy, although I hope the whole galaxy isn't as polluted as the solar system is, but at least outside of our solar system, I know there has to be a warning barricade saying caution.
But listen, Jeff.
Enter at your own risk.
Jeff, can I say this though? Listen. I agree with you 100%. As a whole, if I was a species looking down on the earth and observing, you would see the war, the wrath, everything that's gone on over all these millennium, whatever, you know. But I would also, as a species, I would see that, you know what? There's some good down on that planet. I really do believe that there's a lot of good. And if there was one species of beings that interjected and said, we can help this civilization get on the right path, give them some technology that would get rid of all of that kind of stuff. Why? I believe that. So why has that not happened?
I agree with that. You think that. I'm sure Tracy thinks that. But you understand that's because we're human. That's why we think like a human. Okay?
Well,
and you can't go casting the way a human thinks onto anything, onto an alien. You wouldn't cast the way onto a mushroom or onto the goldfish living in your kid's bedroom.
Yeah.
So why would you do it to an alien species that could be, you know?
Because I like to think
we look like a germ to them.
Well, because I like to think if I'm smart enough as a human
to
like
believe that. I know plenty of people that would like to think that as well.
Do you think that just because of the history that you have and the experience, do you feel that they're walking around with us, like walking with us, and if they're observing us?
Truthfully, I don't know. I think it's possible. You know, Earl Grey Anderson is now the head of Southern California MUFON.
Okay.
And he's also on the experiencer team. Now, the last Alien Con I was at, I was with Kathleen Marden. I don't know if you're familiar with her, who she is, but she's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill.
Oh, really?
The famous abduction in the early 60s.
Oh, yeah.
And, so Earl is very well trained in how to talk to experiencers and people that have had these experiences, to use the same word twice in the same context. But I picked him to deal with these people while I was still state director because his personality is very empathic.
Right.
He was a certified nurse. He's a caregiver. He's very caring, and he listens to people, which I think is something that a lot of these experiencers needed. They weren't getting the right treatment because, frankly, their stories were so bizarre and so out there that you don't want to believe it. whether it's true or not. Okay, and you got to keep an open mind on these things.
Mhm.
But you hear these stories, and some of them are so weird that you don't want to believe it. You want to think it's perhaps some kind of mental thing they're going through, or something other than what it truly is.
Mhm.
And so I figured Earl is the perfect person to get into dealing with this, and I was right. My fins on this was perfect for him, because he does deal with these people in a very intelligent and compassionate manner. Whereas a lot of them, I don't know that I personally would give them the credibility that they're due until I got more evidence. Okay. I got into ufology because I wanted to find scientific proof to support theories. And the way to do it isn't by just accepting every theory or everything you hear right off the bat and then trying to find information to support it. That's not how I find information on cases. I try and get as much data as I can, and I try to break the sighting. I try and figure out anything else it can be, everything else. And, I exhaust for many years in some instances, what certain things might be. I'm still working on the Battle of LA case, for one thing. And I was very fortunate about a year and a half ago to get to interview one of the witnesses. She was 7 years old at the time, lived in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And the day before the known fighting took place at 2 a.m, that morning, earlier in the day, this little girl and her military family were there near a base in Santa Barbara when this huge craft flew over her house, and that she remembers the shadow of it blocking out all the light in her house and everything, and the parents getting freaked out and telling her not to talk about it. And, of course, in that area, you really didn't talk about UFOs. We thought it was bad in my childhood, and then even worse. But I thought it was fascinating because it verifies the fact that I think the craft came in over the ocean and went inland first. And then around the time that the Battle of LA known event started was when it was coming back, and it was over Culver City and heading towards Santa Monica and then further south down the coast. It's in perfectly with other information. And of course, everyone was on jitters because, the Japanese shelled that refinery in Santa Barbara just the day before. So it got everyone on more nerves and caused the airborne to be on standby for the air raid.
Yeah. It's interesting that Droon does say we might be living in a zoo, which is disturbing thought. That could be kind of a plausible theory on why we're just walking around here and we witness all of this going on and everything, but nothing ever comes of it. I mean, anyways, that's just my thought. I don't know.
And there's a good possibility that we're genetically manipulated to be the species we are, that happened 200,000 years ago by a preeminent species.
I believe there could be a galactic zoo, and we're on the map as Earth, and they visit different solar systems for different species. And wow, look at the humans! I can see that.
There's so many of these things that are possible, and the more you know, the more questions you get, and it circles back sometimes to things you learned before. But I mean, look at every religion basically that's known to man, and what's the basis of it? Well, for one thing, it's not someone on this planet. It's someone that came from somewhere else and had greater knowledge and taught us a better way.
Created us, created everything.
The theme of most of them.
Yeah.
Even the Mormons, the newest Mormon religion, that's ET contact, and told them where the golden plates were, looked them up, and it was, take it from there. So Yeah, that's another religion that was started by ET contact, and I think quite possibly all of them might have been.
Yeah.
You didn't hear that from me, but no.
Yeah.
What do you call someone that's not from here? Well, that's an alien,
Yeah.
and most of the gods are not from here. So,
Well, yeah.
they only had the tools that they had to work with as far
Yeah.
as naming events that happened back in early history. And, you use the tools at your disposal to describe things in your daily life. And of course, beings with, ability to do things far beyond your technological understanding. It would appear to be magical, and they would appear to be as if gods. That's totally understandable. So who knows? It makes a lot more credible sense when you're trying to piece together old stories of history if you just kind of substitute that word alien in there and go on with the story.
Yeah.
It makes a lot more sense and kind of, I think, fills some of the pieces of the puzzle. Although that's opens a whole new can of worms, because then again, you get back to the who, which one of those species, who, what,
Yeah, no, you're
you
right.
can't answer. Again, unknown is unknown. Anything further said is speculation. But, again, I have to say, I've heard enough witness testimony, investigated enough cases where I can say conclusively, yes, some of the reports that come in are definite UFOs and not craft that we're familiar with.
Right.
I could definitely say that, yes, some of these people that have given me reports have had contact with what they believe to be an alien species. And I can say, yes, the evidence I've seen through military channels and footage and photos and things like that, I would have to say that there are many different craft with technology beyond our ability, even to this day. And, those are things you think about it, and that's saying quite a lot just in making those statements there and saying that I can say that conclusively.
No, 100%.
Anyone
Yeah.
coming forward 30, 40 years ago and saying that conclusively would be considered a nut. But the fact is, if you don't
Sure.
think that the things I say are possible, then perhaps it's you that's the nut.
Nah. Well, I mean, again, there's so much evidence out there. It's like, how can you say that there's not something going on? But in all your years, Jeff, of all your years of doing this, does any one instance stand out that like took you up and above everything else and made you go, boy, this is just so shocking, so concrete, that anything, all the years in MUFON, or have they just been little stories here and there, pictures,
No,
evidence?
I have some really mind-blowing cases that I've run across over the years, and that has come to my attention that others have run across. Of course, my favorite are always the military cases, or the ones involving missing time. But I have to say, probably my favorite story of an encounter of all time would be the Cisco Grove incident that happened back in the 70s. And there's a book written by Ruben Uriarte and Noe Torres, who were state directors for MUFON. Noe, I think, for Texas, and Ruben was my Northern California partner. He was a state director up there while I was Southern California director. But the book details three gentlemen that went camping in the Cisco Grove area near Sacramento, California. And they were avid bow hunters. And of course, they separated during the course of the night And one of them, Mr. Donald Trump, had an encounter with some aliens, and he ended up fighting them off all night long with bows and arrows from a tree he tied himself into, which I think was a fascinating story. And it was a Project Blue Book case as well. It was investigated by J. Allen Hynek himself.
Okay.
And one of the arrows,
Bow and arrows, huh?
Mr. Shrum shot that bounced off one of the robots was supposedly even collected by the Air Force. And there was a rumor that it was on Allen Hynek's desk for many years. But I know his sons, I know Paul, and I asked Paul if he had ever heard of the arrow, and it hasn't been found. He's going to ask his brother Joel and see if Joel knows anything about it, but the arrow has not turned up yet. But supposedly it had,
of course,
what looked like metal on the arrowhead that it picked up when it impacted with the robotic body or whatever suit the alien was wearing, whatever that was. But fascinating story. The name of the book they wrote about it is called Aliens in the Forest, and you can get it on Amazon. I'd give it a pitch. I'd say get the book and read it if you want a really good story. It's a quick read, and I even pitched it, to have a film made out of it.
Cowboys and aliens. Yeah.
Well, Cowboys and Aliens was one thing, but this is actually even better because of the fact that this guy tied into the tree, and when he ran out of arrows and stuff, he started lighting off strips of clothing and pine cones and whatever else, and throwing it back down at him.
Wow. So, Net7 gives a super chat, $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Why do you think we have not yet gone to Mars? Was it the fact that after the U.S. won the space race, landing first on the moon, we just rested on our laurels and walked away? Or is it another reason?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
And, I think it all boils down to money. We just, at the time, the reason I was very sad to see NASA step back from the space race, but you got to understand at the time, the United States was almost in the same exact financial situation we find ourselves in today, with record inflation and high costs of everything, and all of a sudden we had this gas shortage going on and rationing of gas, and it suddenly seemed less important at the time to get out into space rather than to take care of things at home. That was the reason that they gave for discontinuing the program. Not me saying I'm okay with it. That was the reason they gave. And then they started again with the shuttle, which, kind of I thought was a joke because really it really didn't even leave low Earth orbit. But I guess it accomplished what it was designed for, which was to help us build the International Space Station and get us going that way, which I guess was a necessary step. Things we've had to learn that we learned in that process. I don't know if you've seen the TV show For All Mankind on Apple TV at all, but
have not.
A lot of the problems that we would run across in exploration and moving out to other planets were dealt with during that series. And it's funny, again, it goes back to what I said about bases under the ocean and going underground.
I still don't understand why we're not.
Have a base on the moon or on Mars.
Yeah.
You're going to want it to be underground because the radiation alone could kill you. People don't understand how bad the radiation is. We're lucky. We are so blessed to have this atmosphere, and everyone thinks, oh, that's just the air we breathe. And it is so much more than that, and it is so very important that we pay attention to keeping it the way it is, because not only does it provide us what we need to breathe to stay alive, it also keeps out the stuff that would prevents us from turning it all into She-Hulks and things like that, getting skin cancers or just burning up in a crisp, because the radiation out there is really no joke. And in fact, probes, that's why the secret space plane that the Air Force has up circling for a year at a time, whenever it comes back down and lands at Vandenberg, they have a specialized team in suits come up, and they have to cover it in foam and everything before anyone can approach it and decontaminate it, because all the radiation that's picked up and absorbed during its time up there in space. And even objects that aren't up a long time can come back down and still have residual amounts of radiation clinging to them that aren't healthy. So that's something that you always want to be wary of. And again, one of the things I've taught all my investigators right off the bat that had any interest at all in pursuing going to a UFO crash or wreckage retrieval is, you want to make damn sure you have a good Geiger counter with you, and a tri-field meter, because you don't want to be walking into something that's going to kill you. In some instances, it could that quick.
Well, yeah, radiation is definitely a bad thing. Anyways, based on the dark side of the moon, Jeff, any thoughts on the dark side of the moon? Anything
Great album. I love Pink Floyd. I wish that I could have seen them a couple more times, but
a great fan.
Yeah, I'm here all week, folks. Try the meatloaf. No, I know nothing about the dark side because I haven't seen it. I've seen photos, but it appears to be the more cratered side. Apparently, it suffered more trauma than the side facing Earth. And of course, that's to be expected, considering it was in place while there was still active meteoric activity going on, bombarding the Earth itself as well. That was back in the early formative stages, while the Earth was still probably glowing magma ball in space. So, yeah, that's it's a hostile environment at best. But it turns out it's providing one of the best chances for habitat for life, because of the fact that some of these craters that don't get sunlight, they stay at constant temperature. Of course, the backside of the moon always gets. Well, that's not true. Well, that's a misconception. There is some light on the backside, just we don't see it because it's on the backside.
Right.
But the areas that get sunlight, they can get incredibly hot and then drop down at nighttime to incredibly cold temperatures. Whereas in
like Arizona,
things stay relatively stable and normal. So if anything, the place where we want to put up any type of a habitat or base would be in one of these zones in a crater that stays at a relative moderate temperature.
Have you been to any crash sites? I think that's
if I told you, I'd have to. No, knowledge.
Yeah.
No. It's funny because I was actually a member of the STAR team back when it really was a STAR team, and nothing ever got. I was ready. I was got everything I'd need. I have my kit, my investigation kit. I got my suit, my contamination suit. I got my Geiger counter. I got my tri-field meter. Got my metal detectors. Got evidence bags. I got measuring tapes. I got lasers. I haven't needed any of it. No crashes that I know of. But if one happens in my vicinity, I'm damn ready. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's not something you can plan for, and I don't expect one. Of course, I never expected to see any of the UFOs I saw when I saw them. So one never knows. But I don't think if one were to happen, the general public would necessarily know about it right off the bat, unless it happened in your neighborhood and you happen to pick up some kind of chatter on a scanner or something, or someone near there knew to call you. Other than that, the chances of finding out about something like that are pretty negligible.
Yeah, you would have to be within that vicinity or somewhere, live near to what's going on,
Yeah.
like the Roswell case, and I don't know what
Mhm.
your thoughts are on the Roswell case, if you believe that was a true event or not.
I know it
You
was a
know.
true event.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I'll put it that way. Now, like I said earlier, I had relatives that lived in Artesia, south of Roswell.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I was told about the event by relatives when I was young, and they're older. They're, of course, passed many years ago.
Mhm.
Many of the locals in New Mexico know about what really happened.
Right.
And it's funny because people in New Mexico don't talk to strangers, and they don't talk, they won't tell you anything unless, you're okayed with someone else there. And still to this day, that's kind of the story. A lot of them don't cough up information that, you know, I know they have.
Yeah.
Most
Well,
of the
everybody
kids
that's
knew about it, and,
yeah.
you know, but they're not loose-lipped, and the government scared the crap out of a lot of the families at the time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're really not concerned with coming forward to any government entities or letting any government entities know that they're discussing the subject, even to this day.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. I'm very good friends with all of Jesse Marcel's grandchildren.
Okay.
Um, you can find, I've spoken with them on a few different occasions.
Mhm.
Denise Marcel's a very good friend of mine. She was my assistant state director with MUFON before Earl was. I trained her as a field investigator personally. Jesse Marcel Jr. is a very good friend of mine. John Marcel, their brother, is another good friend. I know the family very, very well. I know the story very well. And let me just put this into perspective. When the Roswell crash happened,
Hmm.
the 509th Bomb Group was the only atomic weapons bomb group in the world. Okay. The 509th Bomb Group stationed at Roswell Army Airfield was the top outfit in the world. They had the nuclear secrets and everything. Jesse Marcel was the intelligence officer for the 509th Bomb Group.
Okay.
Anybody
Hmm.
that thinks the intelligence officer for the 509th Bomb Group
Right.
is going to misidentify some flimsy balsa wood and kite string
Yeah.
and aluminum
Mhm.
foil for a flying saucer
Hmm.
really doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I think the whole Roswell
I'll
thing
tell
is
you
just
what, I know the
yeah.
family. His son, Jesse Marcel Jr., was a great, great person. He became a doctor. He was in the service. He was a combat doctor. He spent many years, contributing his service to our armed
Mhm.
services
Right.
when need. But not only that, he was the boy on the floor of the kitchen who Jesse Marcel Sr. brought the wreckage in and let handle it.
Oh, wow.
And so he remembered, all about the things that they saw. And of
Nice.
course,
Yeah.
over the years, he told his kids about it.
Mhm.
So I've heard, although he died right before I got, I was in contact with him and had been talking with him through emails and stuff, but I never got to meet him. But I, became very good friends with first Denise and then Jesse,
Hmm.
and we've done a lot of, presentations and things together about Roswell and discussing different events. So, it's pretty well known that what he brought in was not what they had on display in that photo, the famous
No.
photo, where it says Raimi debunks UFO and
Yeah.
they
Right.
have the weather balloon on the floor. Rest assured, what was in that photo is not what was recovered off the ranch. Nine big wooden crates of material that was recovered from the ranch was flown from Roswell Army Airfield to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Right here in Ohio, yep.
Some of those crates were stored there. Some of those crates went to the Battelle Memorial Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend, Dr. Irina Scott, worked at Battelle Memorial Institute, and she wrote a great book, which I would recommend, which details the paper trail for all this wreckage and why we know some of it went to Wright Pat and some of it went to Battelle. Give me 1 second to peek.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
There we go. Sorry. This one right here. Sacred
Sacred
Corridors.
Oh,
Dr.
nice.
Irina Scott.
Good old cup of coffee there. Yeah.
I would definitely, if you want to find what happened to the Roswell wreckage and why we know that Project Blue Book had a lot more information than they ever let go to the public. That's one of the books to read right there.
Oh, nice. Do you have you written any books yourself about any of your experiences, or do you have a website that people can go to learn more from you?
When I was with MUFON, I had a blog for about over a year called the MUFON Field. Well, it was called the Field Investigators Toolbox.
Okay.
You can still find it at MUFONFieldInvestigator.blogspot.com.
Okay.
However, I haven't added to it in a long time. And right now, I'm not a MUFON field investigator. I am getting ready to start a new blog. I've been working on a book called The Slow UFO.
Right.
Slow is not slow as in S-L-O-W. It's slow as in S-L-O, standing for San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
And it details that photo I sent you folks, which is a beautiful disc. The only credit found on it in I searched over 200 different instances I found of it, and nobody knew any information other than that it was taken July 7th, 1967 in San Luis Obispo, California.
Okay.
So I ended up being the person that tracked it down. I found another copy of it that had gone to Wright Pat and been unclassified, which clued me in that, well, it must have been classified to be unclassified. So it was a Project Blue Book case at one point. And I figured out the location simply by blind luck. I went to the museum in San Luis Obispo here to see if any of the people there knew anything about it or anyone had ever, shown them the picture or talked about it. They were totally clueless. And I was kind of bummed out at that point. So I walked back to the parking garage and I'm sitting in the van looking at the photo on my iPad. I looked up through the windshield and I'll be damned, I'm looking right at the friggin' mountain itself that's in the same photo, which ended up being Bishop Peak. And where I was at the time, the parking garage, could have been the location where the actual photo was taken in 67. I don't know. That parking garage wasn't there then, but darn close to where the photo was taken, I'm sure. Anyway, so I did narrow down the location. And after, much searching, I found out that it was also a Project Blue Book case. And there was some meat and bones to it. So I have, like I said, I wrote many Freedom of Information requests about it. And I found out some information if I want to go to the archive and dig it out.
Right.
Like obviously, I got it before I could finish the book. And I need more information. But I've been researching it for quite a few years. I have quite a bit of meat in the book already, including other sightings in California and history of the area here in San Luis Obispo.
Nice.
So I expect that book to be done probably sometime in the next year or so.
Okay.
But I'm also going to finish what I'm calling the Field Investigators Toolbox Volume 1. And it's basically going to be everything I wrote on the blog so far, but updated and refreshed in a bigger format for a book for people to reference. And that I should have done within the next few months. A lot of material. So what the old stuff is going to be volume 1. And when I finish that, I'll go ahead and do a volume 2, which will have newer and current stuff since I left MUFON.
Okay. Oh, fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're going to have to let me know when you get the books, and we could, have you back on and pimp
Definitely.
the books out. But yeah. And Wayne Boyle does say, and it is at the bottom of the hour, so we're going to get ready to say bye to you. But I'm hearing a lot of people saying aliens are us from the future. That's as good a guess or theory as any others. Why not? So
Some of them could be, not all of them. You can't generalize and say they're this.
Yeah.
That group is.
Yeah,
but then you got all these guys over here. They say, no, we're not that.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? It's, you interview and you talk to so many people, you investigate yourself, you do all this, and you still just speculate, and you really don't have solid. It's just a long, long journey, Jeff, ain't it? I mean,
you get more questions that you want to ask.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do run across things that give you a foundation, and you say, yes, this lends credibility, and it builds a solid foundation to what's going on. There are enough good credible cases where actual measurements of things have been taken, like the Zamora case. There's measurements of indentations in the ground taken. Travis Walton's case, they've gone back and they've measured tree ring growth. So we do have we do have some scientific things going on that where we're learning from these cases. And like anything else, you want to collect the data and you want to listen to the data, but in many of these instances, you can't close a case because there's still data out there to collect and still witnesses to talk to, and still many things. And again, until we actually get one of them to park, come down the ramp, and say,
"Hello,
Bob."
Yep.
We're
just it's still a long journey.
Heads, and that's not fair.
Exactly. It's the one thing that pisses me off about the whole subject matter is that somebody ought to stop by here. Get out of the darn station.
You can't say just because they didn't talk to me, it can't be real.
Well, no, I'm not saying
it's
that.
Like you can't go down to the ocean and dip your cup in and say, "Oh, there's not a fish in here. There's no fish."
Right. Well,
same thing.
You could reach in that cup and take that fish out, but
just don't drink that water. It's probably got pee in it.
Probably. Anyways, we'll it's 9:25, so your little doggy is a little sick, so you got to go take that out and take care of the doggy. So
I want to just say, you know what? My little doggy right there, Izzy.
Hard to see him, but
she's 15 years old. And I'm afraid we're going to be having to put her to sleep on Monday. Really sad, but blind. She can barely walk. She's got a tumor this big on her. She's been a good dog. Yeah. So I've been pampering her and taking, giving her lots of attention and lots of treats and making it a great weekend for her.
Yep,
but her moments when she's awake have not been pleasant for her or me.
Right. Well, sometimes you got to do what's best when it comes to the animals. I mean, so prayers to you, man. Sorry about all of that. Yeah. And hopefully things go well on Monday. I know it'll be sad anyways, but anyways, for the show here, Jeff, man, you've been a hoot and a riot. Enjoyed talking to you even before we got on the air here, but
yes, because I would love to hear more of the paranormal side. So hopefully you can come back again.
Yes.
Well, anytime, you know how to get a hold of me anytime you want to talk.
Oh yeah. No, we'll get in contact with you. hopefully you'll get the one book done within the next few months here, and we'll definitely get you back on and even talk some paranormal. So Jeff, thank you very much for joining Paranormal Into the Night on the Late Horror Show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again for having me. It's been fun.
Yep. Okay, and you take care, bud. I'll talk to you. I will talk to you in the future because you were too fun. So we'll talk again. You take care, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, there you go. That was Jeff Krause, and you followed.
That was so fun.
That was fun. He was a riot. So, yeah. Your thoughts on anything here, Tracy? Fun show.
Very fun show. I totally enjoyed it. Jeff has so much information, and even like you said before we got on. Oh, the conversation. And I need to hear more about the paranormal aspect that he's kind of digging into. So that's a huge next time for sure.
Oh yeah, because that's your wheelhouse. And mine. You know, I mean,
that's great.
It's definitely some. And I'm trying to keep up with everything here.
The chat's moving so fast.
Yeah. JKS 80s horror fan, super chat, $20. Thank you very much, man. Dino, I heard the aliens that walk among us don't eat tacos, burgers, or chili. Well, 80s horror fan, if you're here Tuesday, you may see Tracy. That's all I'm saying. Thank you again, Jeff. He's still in the lobby. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it, brother. Good guy. Thank you, 80s horror fan very much, but Tuesday she may eat some tacos. Okay, I said it. She may eat some tacos. Late night coffee talk with Tracy and Lisa, and Dave Plouffe will be there too. So you guys, I think, all will be trying something, and I'm going to bring something. It's going to be a hell of a show. There's going to be all four of us are going to be eating something. I don't know.
It's Tuesday. Absolutely.
Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And the stream overnight tonight is The Mysterious Traveler all night long for 12 hours. You guys really will enjoy this if you haven't heard it before. It's kind of a best of I put together, and I love this show. Like Stairpike said, he's always on the train. Yes, he travels on the train. That's what they did back then. But anyways, Tracy, say goodbye to everybody, and we are going to end this.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so take care, and I will see you. Let's see. Movie night tomorrow night on Patreon, and for the people who joined, and everybody who did a super chat, all the new people, and even Horror Junkie again gifted a membership. Thank you very much for all of that, and thank you. Much love, and we will see you next time. Bye.